Hey guys, what's up and welcome back to the RocketHub. My name is Philip and today we are celebrating 2 years of the RocketHub. Yes, you heard it right. On the 5th of February 2023, this channel has its 2-year anniversary. And because that is the case, and we have also recently passed the 100 subscribers and have actually almost hit the 200 by now, I'm gonna give you a really special video today, something that I've never done before. But firstly, I want to thank every one of you who has subscribed to the channel, most of you in the last 1 month or so through the Buran video, which blew up a lot. I didn't expect it. A huge thank you for that, and everyone who is watching this channel now and belongs to the RocketHub community. What we're going to do today is in this way special, that we're going to analyze 7 different movie scenes that have to do with rocket launches or spaceflight in general, and check out how realistic they are. What I'm going to do is I will have myself in a kind of reaction cam up here in the right top of the screen and have the movie scene playing out on the rest, so I can pause it whenever I want and comment on things that happen in the scene. You will see how this turns out pretty quickly though. So with that said, let's begin with the very first scene. So the first scene that we will take a look at is from one of my personal favorite spaceflight movies, which is The Martian by Ridley Scott from 2015. I'm pretty sure most of you will know this movie. It's a famous one, but the scene we're gonna analyze today is the ascent scene from pretty much the very end of the movie. So if you haven't seen it, actually, little spoiler warning right here, but I'm pretty sure most of you have seen it anyway, so doesn't care. Well, let's watch the scene together and check out how real it is.
Fuel pressure green.
First of all, Hermes is a great spacecraft. Looks exactly like what NASA would build if they went to Mars in this kind of transport ship design.
Control, this is Hermes actual. We will proceed on schedule. We have T-minus 2 minutes.
Also great launch control, looks really clean.
About 2 minutes, Watney. How you doing down there?
I'm good. I'm anxious to get up to you. Thanks for coming back for me.
Well, we're on it. Remember, you'll be pulling some serious G, so it's okay to pass out. You're Martian.
That is realistic, this. You can't pass out during high G ascents.
Copy that, Mav. Capcom. Go. Remote command.
Go.
Recovery.
Go.
Secondary recovery.
Go.
Pilot.
Go.
Pilot.
Go.
They're excited.
Mission control, we are go for launch. T-minus 10, 9.
Main engine start.
8.
Okay, now we get a pretty nice look at the spacecraft they're using in this scene, which is the Martian Ascent Vehicle, or MAV. And what we can see as design-wise, this looks pretty realistic actually. We have to consider this movie plays in the year 2035, so about 12 years in the future from now. And we can see at the very top there's a crew module, which looks just like an Orion capsule or an Apollo command module. That's the same style of spacecraft, very realistic. That's probably what NASA would do in this case. We have what looks like a 2-stage vehicle with a landing stage down at the bottom. We have a really large and thick first stage and this small segment at the top, which is like 2 meters tall. That's the second stage probably. And propulsion wise, orange flame, and it is said even in the movie, this is a hydrazine engine, so it's a hypergolically fueled engine, meaning that the fuel doesn't have to be combusted. When fuel and oxidizer come into contact, it will combust spontaneously. This is also a great fuel choice for Mars ascent because hydrazine is manufacturable on Mars, so they can use ISRU to get this fuel. And also hypergolics are pretty simple choice of fuels. There isn't much in the engine that can be damaged for it not to work anymore. So this is actually a really good vehicle design right there.
7. Warren clamps released. About 5 seconds, Watney. Hang on.
See you in a few, Commander.
Also, communications between the crew is great, especially considering that Earth cannot help because of the long distance and the time that signals travel between Earth and Mars. Yeah. And then we have this right here. We have just seen the engines of the Mars Ascent vehicle are running on hydrazine, so it's a hypergolic fuel, but the exhaust plume we see on screen right now is not the one of a hypergonically fueled engine. This is an SRB exhaust plume, something that has nothing to do with the choice of fuel we have in the movie, so we definitely have the wrong exhaust going on here. Hydrazine exhaust is brownish and mostly transparent. This is a grey plume of smoke, so sadly we have to deduct some points here. It's not the right exhaust for the fuel that they're using. But I like how they're leaving the landing stage on the ground and use it as some kind of launch pad for the vehicle. What they're doing right here with the canvas covering all the holes and openings in the caps in the crew module that they basically put in there to get more delta V, that actually is possible. It looks crazy, but it could work out actually. Considering Mars atmosphere is about 1% of the thickness of Earth atmosphere, so there's far less forces, aerodynamic forces on the vehicle, and the lighter weight means that it accelerates faster. So before the aerodynamic forces could get great enough to rip it apart, you're already outside the atmosphere. So what they're doing in the scene is maybe actually possible. We haven't tried it, we can only be sure if we have tried it, but theoretically this actually works, which is really, really cool and nicely portrayed in the movie.
Velocity 741 meters per second, altitude 1350 meters. That's too low.
Well, it's fighting me.
Yeah, also that he's passing out is really realistic, considering he's pulling like 10, 11 Gs or something. And there we have stage separation, so it is in fact a two-stage vehicle.
Velocity 850, altitude 1843. He's well below target altitude. How far below? Checking? Whitney, do you read?
Yeah, he is.
He's probably passed out.
Yeah, he is in G-lock. He's gone.
Main shutdown in 3, 2, 1, shutdown.
Yeah, now it's engine shutdown, and second stage is gonna separate. Yeah.
Shutdown confirmed.
Well, that is exactly how a good launch sequence should look like in a movie, because it's exactly what happens in a real spacecraft. So overall, this is a really, really nicely done scene. We have a great spacecraft design, we have a realistic launch sequence, we have good crew communications, and so the spaceflight aspect of it is fairly good. The only issue I have with this is that the Mars Ascent module has the wrong exhaust plume for the type of fuel they're using, but this is only kind of a minor error. And overall, it is really, really accurate movie in general, and the scene in particular is also almost perfect. So if I had to rate this out of 10 points, I would give it a 9.5 with a half-point deduction only for having the wrong type of exhaust plume. The second scene we want to take a look at today is from Netflix's Don't Look Up movie. It is the shortest scene that we're gonna look at today, and at the same, because this movie isn't really focused on spaceflight, but we have a shuttle launch going on here. Space Shuttle is probably the most overused vehicle in cinema in general, just because it is probably the most recognizable and most well-known rocket that we have ever flown in real life. So, and we have a lot of launch scenes of the shuttle in pretty much all of cinema. This is one of them. We're gonna see how real is it, how compares it to a real shuttle launch, and of course, again, rate it. So, first thing I see is we have a realistic liftoff, we have the right exhaust at the SRBs and the main engines. Okay, this however is complete bullshit. You would never have this many vehicles launching this close together. I mean, that looks like some of them aren't even 100 feet apart to me. There are like 20-30 vehicles, the Space Shuttle, a lot of smaller launchers launching all within the confines of what appears to be LC-39B. No, just no, you wouldn't do that, because if one of these rockets has an issue with flight controls, has a malfunction, or just gets blown off course by winds, and it could easily crash into another vehicle if they're so close together and trigger a domino effect. It could take out easily half of the vehicle swarm we have going on here. So this is just an unnecessary risk no one would take, even in this situation. If you had to launch this many vehicles at about the same time, what you would do is either space them further apart, like use LT-39A, B, or even completely other different launch sites, maybe even on the other side of the continent to launch them. Or you would say you launch them in short time intervals, like a few minutes between each vehicle, and let them fly one after another up into space if having them launch in different positions is not possible. But what we have here, this many vehicles in one spot, this is just completely stupid from an engineering perspective. Yeah, they're all happy because in their case it does luckily work out. Again, right exhaust types, small vehicles, also SRBs, as it seems. And here we have a pretty neat close-up shot on the shuttle model they're using for the movie, and there's not much to say about this, other than this is in fact a real space shuttle. Of course they didn't film a real shuttle launch with this camera angle, which is not possible, of course, but this model is just exact replica of the real space shuttle. It did look like that in real life, it does look like that in museums in real life. It has the right exhaust types, all the details on the skin. So this is just perfect. The other launchers around it, we can see that here with the traces of smoke, they're probably also SRB powered, which is what you would do if you had to assemble a lot of rockets really fast. SRBs are probably a really good option right there. So the vehicle designs in the scene, they do check out in fact.
I come from Alabama, where the banjo
Although you couldn't sing this scenario because 3.5 Gs put on your body. No.
Margin of error was for 2 to malfunction.
Madam President, may I have a
Politicians
word with you
discussing a
outside
shuttle
the
launch. This is also something happening.
Mission success probability is already increased to 81%.
So all in all, this scene, I have to say, they have the right vehicle designs. This is a real shuttle. They have realistic, made-up vehicles flying around there. But again, the launch separation is the major issue with the scene. You would never, ever see something like that in real life, because launching it all this close together is just stupid. You would never do this. It's way too risky. So I'd say this is probably a 5 out of 10. Right vehicle designs, crappy launch sequence. They could have done better, honestly. Our third scene is actually the oldest one we're going to look at today. It's from 1998 and taken from the movie Armageddon. We have another shuttle launch scene going on here, although the shuttles we're going to see are no real shuttles. They are more of a shuttle-derived orbiter design that they invented for the movie. So we have to take into consideration that this is not a 100% real shuttle launch, but it's probably really similar to one.
All right, flight directors, I want the go, no, go for launch. Retro, go flight. Booster, go flight.
First thing I see is launch control and callouts. Everything looks great, sounds great. Realistic design of a firing room. Maybe it's even a real one, I don't know. But it's a strange lighting. And we have a night launch, which is clearly possible and often done. And also realistic.
Independence, this is launch control. Be advised we're in a smooth count.
T-minus 31. Your go for auto sequence start. PLTs.
Okay, our first look at the vehicle design. I have to say it looks odd to me. It has the real shuttle's SRBs. It has the external main tank, but the orbiter is thicker. It's beefed up a little bit. It has these weird little sticks on the back. It has little canard wings at the front, and it's made by the US Air Force. So yeah, this looks a bit messed up to me, but we're gonna see what the design elements are used for, hopefully.
Perform your APU restart.
Okay, gentlemen. You're our warriors up there. God be with you.
Ah, come on. You could have at least said Godspeed, maybe. You had the chance to. Why did you do it? Okay, the engine's lit up a bit too early, but countdown sequence is fine. Okay, so the exhaust is fine. We have SRB exhaust there for the solid rocket boosters and hydrogen exhaust for the main engines, that's right. So the thing is, on the back I can still can't see what they are. No propulsion elements, they don't light up. That's liftoff, so... Yeah, this is just straight up a new footage from the real shuttle launch, slightly altered. This actually is a real shuttle launch.
We have go for independence.
And we have the second one lifting off. This thing has two sets of wings above each other. What? Wait, is that a nozzle? Yeah, that is a nozzle up there on the little things on the back. So the more I look at the shuttle design, the less sense it makes. It has propulsion elements on the back which don't fire at liftoff, like are they in-space propulsion? Oh, what is that? And they have dual wings above each other, which aerodynamically is just wrong. They have canards, so they have, instead of one delta wing, they have 3 types of wings on there, but still the same propulsion elements. So the shuttle is way heavier, but it still can fly with the standard shuttle external rocket structure, which is just impossible due to mass reasons. So the longer the scene goes, the more messed up the vehicle design gets, I guess. And just like in Don't Look Up, this launch separation is complete bullshit. It's way too close together. Again, it's further apart than in Don't Look Up, but it's still way too close together. This is maybe a mile or two. You wouldn't do that. You would at least space them further apart in timing of the launch or in distance, but this is done for dramatic purposes. I understand why you would do that from a movie maker perspective, but in terms of spaceflight in real life, this is not correct. This doesn't make any sense.
Houston, the tower is clear. They're all yours.
Why they're communicating with Houston in the firing room? Okay, makes no sense.
Everybody, they're ours now.
All engines are go.
Keep a sharp eye out on both of them.
Go in trouble.
At least they have a right launch sequence so far. Kinda. They're rotating over, pitching over. Why are they spinning though? Why are you spinning them? It doesn't make sense. Unsafe. Okay, the things on the back, they're not lighting up whatsoever.
One down.
We have a max Q.
Roger, control. We are max Q.
Max Q call out, nice.
SRB set.
This is one of the worst shots in all of spaceflight cinema that I have seen. So there's a lot wrong here. We have SRB set at the same time as external main tank separation, which is not right. The launch sequence of the real shuttle, the SRBs get separated minutes ahead of the external main tank. The engines on the shuttle, the SSMEs, are still running without the fuel source, which is in the external main tank. So they are running without having any fuel on board, which is just, again, not possible. And actually, in terms of launch separation, the booster here on the left, if we follow its path, the second shuttle will just fly into it and be completely obliterated, which demonstrates just well why you wouldn't launch so close together. This shot is pretty much as wrong as you can get a shuttle launch, I have to say that. Respect, you did everything wrong you could. Nice. Yeah, this is just complete bullshit, sorry. They have MECO without fuel on board. They can't even run their engines right now. Why are they still doing MECO? Why are you spinning? They spin for no reason. Yeah, now they cut off the main engines, but they couldn't even run right now. And again, the things on the back, they haven't fired. They're just useless. Yeah, now they're in space for some reason. So, okay, overall, you couldn't have gotten more wrong than this scene did. Honestly. The vehicle design, it is an alternative shuttle design, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense. The additions there, they don't have any purpose, they're just there, they do nothing. They actually make the shuttle more complicated and probably even not even possible in this, like it's shown in the movie. The launch sequence separation is off, they spin all the time, which makes no sense, they separate in the wrong order, they have the main engines running without any fuel on board, so this is just completely unrealistic. The only thing they did get right in this scene is at the very beginning we have the countdown sequence and the launch control callouts and everything. That is pretty realistic, but apart from that, it's just all off. In total, this is maybe it's a 2, maybe a 3 out of 10. It's one of the worst spaceflight scenes I've seen. And the fun fact, it gets even worse later in the movie than this scene. So I'm happy to not having to watch that. Next one, the fourth scene, is taken from the 2019 movie Ad Astra, and it is our only landing scene in this video that we're going to react to. So we don't have a liftoff and not a low launch, but we have a descent from orbit to the surface of Mars in this case. So let's analyze again, how real is it? Could it work in real life? And also what we have to consider is this movie is set sometime in the future, so we have a bit of more advanced technology going on here. So our spacecraft design looks a bit odd, but has solar panels, which is nice.
Major, would you commence the auto landing sequence?
Copy.
Spacecom, we're approaching Mars. Ursa Station South. Over.
Okay, we have a really nice close-up shot of the vehicle they're using right here. First of all, they have either solar panels or radiators, maybe both on the side there in 6 different arrays. And they do actually retract at the beginning of the landing sequence, so they don't get damaged during the atmospheric re-entry and can be reused. This is just perfect. This is what you would do if you had to get some power in space. You probably use solar panels, and if you need to get energy, heat mostly away from the vehicle, then you use radiators. So this is right. This is a realistic design. The thing that annoys me about this vehicle is that just looks like it is a rocket that you could use for liftoff in space with solar panels. Why is it so long and cylindrical? The shape of it is just a bit weird. I believe it has some sort of purpose, but it doesn't appear to me why you would do that. But they have RCS thrusters firing there. You can see that at the bottom of the vehicle. This is nice. That is actually how you turn around the vehicle in space. Great job, movie. And now they're entering the atmosphere. Okay. Bottom, probably engines first, which is exactly how the Falcon 9 boosters do it.
I think we just lost primary electrical bus.
The electric failure? Okay, nice. They have redundant electrical systems. This is exactly how it works in real life. And they enter engines first, yep.
Captain, we're coming in too hot. Our angle's off 20 degrees.
And they even have predetermined the entry angle, so they don't burn up. This is also realistic.
Incorrect angle of descent.
Go to manual.
Warning. Incorrect angle of descent.
Yeah, they have an automatic warning on there because they have an error in the landing sequence.
Go to manual.
Danger.
Initiating manual.
So far it looks really good, except for the vehicle design maybe.
On my mark. Execute. Mark. I have command of the ship.
Danger.
Okay, now he's manually correcting the angle of descent. Yeah, they're going engine first. They're taking the atmospheric braking. This is exactly what the Falcon 9 booster does so far. Yeah.
4, 3, 2, 1.
So they do enter the atmosphere engines first, they brake with the air resistance, and now they're doing a suicide burn to land, which is just lighting up the engines and slow down to 0, so you exactly touch down when your velocity hits 0. This landing profile is exactly what the Falcon 9 booster does and what the Super Heavy will do in the future. And probably other rockets as well, like Rocket Lab's Neutron, for example. So that is a really, really good approach to how to land on a different planet, because it works here on Earth, it works as well on Mars, so this is a good landing sequence. Okay, the propulsion they have there is something futuristic that I don't know, but it plays in the future. Maybe we have something better in this timeline.
Engine shut down.
Yeah, now they shut down the engines, which is what you do after a suicide burn landing.
Major, would you start post-landing sequence, please?
Copy that.
Command structure in the cockpit, maybe a bit weird, like more like an aircraft, but we don't know what reasons they have for that. They have landed on Mars, but again, now the vehicle design kind of shows why it's bad. It's too high. You have to get down 100 meters or something to get to the surface. Like, why you do this?
Why I did that. I will not report it to Spacecom.
Yeah, okay. So, overall, this movie scene, it looks good to me. The vehicle design is a bit odd. I don't know why you would design it this way, but there has to be a reason. It isn't shown here on descent. Maybe it has to do something with in-space travel or on ascent, if you launch the vehicle. But the landing sequence is really, really nice. They chose a realistic landing scenario for the shape the vehicle has, which is just copying the Falcon 9 booster, because it also is a long cylindrical object. And so that makes a lot of sense. You would actually land like this on Mars if you have a vehicle that looks like this. Overall, I'd say this is probably an 8 out of 10. The vehicle is a bit unrealistic, but the landing sequence is just spot on. They also have redundant systems in there. They got a lot right, only a little bit wrong. Overall, this is a solid movie scene in terms of landing on another planet. Our next scene is not from a movie, but from a TV show instead. It's taken from the Apple TV series For All Mankind, where we have an alternative timeline in which the Soviets landed on the moon first and the space race went on after the Apollo program, which is pretty interesting if you ask me. The series is pretty great. I recommend to all of you to watch it if you haven't seen it already. And the particular scene we're looking at is from the first season of the show, at the very end, and we are in the year 1983, and we're seeing a Sea Dragon launch. A little bit of background information: Sea Dragon is a real rocket design that was conceptualized in the 1960s, but was never realized due to the program being too complicated and too hard to realize back then. It was too advanced for its time, and probably maybe even for today that has a few issues, but the vehicle, again, they used this vehicle design and brought it to life in the show, and we're gonna see how it compares to the real concept. So again, we are in the year 1983, which is maybe a realistic timeline for the Sea Dragon.
Carrier task force out there.
Just doesn't seem very safe. What if it explodes in the atmosphere?
That's why we're launching it from the middle of nowhere, Karen.
Look, it's risky, Ed. This isn't just another payload. That thing's carrying plutonium.
Oh, okay. Nice payload, plutonium.
Ignition sequence. Start. 5.
Yeah, this right here makes me feel like this is a really good scene, because you can, what you see of the rocket right now is only the very tip right there peeking out of the water. This is maybe top 1% of the vehicle there, and which is exactly what Sea Dragon would have looked like upon liftoff. The vehicle was, when fully fueled and everything, submerged entirely in the water. It had to be launched out of the water because it was just too large to launch on land. It had to be launched out of the ocean. And due to the weight of it, it was entirely submerged apart from the very top of the vehicle, which is exactly what we see here. So this is great. This is exactly how the real concept looks like.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Now we have ignition underwater, and it's rising up into the air out of the water. And oh yeah, the water physics right here are great. What happens if you ignite an engine underwater is you pump exhaust into the ocean, and it displaces water, which has to go somewhere. In this case, it's pushed outwards and upwards and forms this little bulge or hill of water there on the surface, which is exactly what would happen if you would launch a Sea Dragon out of the sea. So the water physics are just spot on and really, really good. And it has the interstage thrusters. Nice. And the main engine comes out. Yeah. Right here, the interstage thrusters shut down, which is exactly what would happen in the Sea Dragon launch sequence. They needed these little thrusters to get it out of the water because the main engine couldn't really push it out because it was too deep underwater. And other than that, they didn't need these little thrusters, so they shut down immediately after. The only issue I can see in this very shot is the exhaust plume of the engine. You see, Sea Dragon was powered by RP1, which is kerosene, and it produces an exhaust similar to what you see in a Falcon 9 or Falcon Heavy, because those vehicles are also powered by RP1, by the same fuel. However, this is too sooty. The exhaust has too much grey smoke elements going on there. It almost looks like an SRB. While the engine isn't as effective and probably produces more soot than modern engines, this is a bit off in terms of the exhaust, just like in the Martian. Great vehicle design, but a bit wrong exhaust here. Yeah, apart from that, this is great. Great song. So this scene is really well done. The Sea Dragon design from the 1960s is incorporated in this show without any flaws, actually. It is exactly what the concept looked like. The launch sequence is great. The water physics is great. The only flaw I see in this movie scene, well, TV show scene, is that they have the wrong exhaust again, just like in The Martian. They have a phenomenal vehicle design, great launch sequence, just a little bit of the wrong exhaust for the fuel they're using. So I would give this again a 9.5 out of 10, with only this little half a point deduction for the issue I just named. Other than that, this is a phenomenal scene and just how you should do it. Our next scene is also from For All Mankind, but this time it's from the second season of the show, not the first one. What we're gonna see in this scene is a fictional spacecraft called the Pathfinder, which is a shuttle-derived / shuttle successor vehicle that has no real-life equivalent. But it's a really interesting one. I have seen this scene multiple times before due to the vehicle design we're gonna see here, and the launch sequence is really interesting. But this time we're gonna analyze how plausible is this fictional vehicle and how realistic is it in terms of mission set and profile, the design constraints of the vehicle and how it's executed in the show.
Pathfinder standing by. We have a green light. Standing by for Sea Dragon launch.
So first we have another Sea Dragon launch, just like in the last scene, but it's way shorter. And it's a night launch. The glow underwater just looks really cool. Again, Sea Dragon's design is fine, but wrong exhaust.
All systems green. Sea Dragon launch confirmed at 4:36 local time.
Pathfinder Houston, just got word from Guam.
Sea Dragon 17 has launched.
Roger that, Houston. Showtime. IMU alignment matches Fred's.
So the cockpit of the Pathfinder looks really great. Considering we are in the late 1980s right now, this is 1980s tech, it looks fine. Yeah, he's not really there in terms of concentration, but a show needs characters, I understand that.
Say again, Gary? I said we have good IMU and RTB windows cover. Copy, good IMU and RTB window. Y'all ready for the inaugural flight of the most badass nuclear rocket ever?
It is nuclear, yep.
Roger that. Houston, we are configured for Nerva flights.
And at this point, I always feel a lot happier when hearing this single word, which is Nerva. Because the Nerva engine is something that existed in real life. It never flew to space, don't get me wrong, but it was an engine design that was tested by NASA back in the day on the ground, but the program got cancelled along the way. The interesting thing about this is, the Nerva is a nuclear thermal rocket engine. It uses the heat generated by a nuclear reactor and hydrogen to produce a low-thrust, high-ISP engine, which is perfect for mainly in-space propulsion. I'm gonna see how it's executed here in the show, but I think it's really cool that they used a real engine for their fictional spacecraft and didn't just make up some sort of engine, which most TV shows and movies would do. But instead they went down the route of choosing an engine that actually existed, which is really nice, and I love it. It's a really great detail.
Good here, Pathfinder. Fred PLB, Houston is go for pushover and set.
Fred Rogers, go for pushover. Altitude 5,000.
Yep, and now we have a full look at the vehicle. As you can see, Pathfinder is air-launched. It's being air-launched from the back of a C-5 Galaxy, which is the right plane. It's the biggest plane the US had back then, probably even right now. I don't know if the 747-8 is larger or not. But the C-5 actually was considered as an air-launched platform for early shuttle designs, but the idea was ditched later on. So this is actually a real idea executed in the show. In terms of the vehicle design of a Pathfinder, it has a lot of similarity with a shuttle in terms of heat shield and the overall white and black color scheme and used materials, which makes sense. If you have experience building shuttles, you could build Pathfinder in a similar way. But the overall vehicle design, we have a lifting body / winged design going on here with the vertical stabilizers and control surfaces on the edge of the wings and not in the center of the tail of the aircraft, of the spacecraft in this case. Where you would have normally got it, because that would contradict the tail of the aircraft it's launched from. So really, really great attention to detail right here.
2, 1, pushover.
Houston is go for separation.
And now C-5 will pitch down and separate Pathfinder, which will just glide on.
Roger, Fred. Set. 3, 2, 1.
And exactly what I said happens. Nice. You can really nicely see the lifting body design right now. The underside is flat, basically, with this angle in the middle, a bit of a triangular design, and the upper side of the vehicle is just completely more chaotic, not as aerodynamic, which is how you would build a lifting body design, with the engine section at the back.
Alright, show good stuff.
This is how an SSTO spaceplane would launch from an aircraft.
Pathfinder, Fred is cleared for Nerva start.
Now we're gonna see the Nerva in action. Nice.
Let's light him up. It's all you, Sally.
Alright. I show green on the control drum actuator. Throttle control's all yours, Skip.
Yep. And since the Nerva is a low-thrust engine, we have to fly it into space. Not really launch vertically, but glide horizontally and use lift from the atmosphere to get us up into space, which is what the Pathfinder does. Nerva exhaust here looks great. It's almost exactly how it would look like in a higher atmosphere. So great attention to detail. And also what it looks like, the Pathfinder has 2 jet engines right here at the back, up there in the engine section, these ports on the surface of the vehicle, which is really interesting because jet engines on SSTO space planes is something that you may actually want to have, because they will probably only be used during the descent and landing phase, as kind of to extend the flexibility of your mission profile where you can land, and also as an enhancement in terms of safety, because if you mess up the landing approach, you can just go around, which was not possible for real life space planes like the shuttle. So this is actually also a real idea used in the design, and it makes a whole lot of sense, and I absolutely love it. Yeah, these guys are excited for obvious reasons.
Excited like that?
Houston, we are under nuclear power and hauling ass.
Just fly it into space. Clean. As it looks like it has even got some orbital maneuvering engines on there. Great attention to detail.
Engine cutoff in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cutoff. Pathfinder is in orbit.
Margot.
How nice of them to keep us in the loop. Pathfinder's on track for rendezvous.
Copy that. Sea Dragon rendezvous burn in 20 minutes.
And they're even doing rendezvous burns and
MEC
everything.
confirmed.
Nice.
Pathfinder, you're right smack dab on trajectory and go for orbit. Expect Sea Dragon rendezvous burn in 19 minutes.
See, that is how you would do launch separation in real life. You launch one of the craft that you want to meet up up in orbit from the Pacific Ocean in this case, and the other one from somewhere above the United States. So thousands of kilometers between the two. Not like in Armageddon and Don't Look Up, like have it meters from each other. That's just bad. This is how you really do it. Completely safe, far apart from each other. They can't hit another, and they will just perform a series of rendezvous burns in orbit to meet up.
Roger, Houston.
Yeah, and there we see orbit insertion / rendezvous burn, which is also really, really realistic. Flight controls look good.
Fly ship in space. No launch. Not blast.
True words. No launch, no blast, just fly. Yep, that's what you do with an STL spaceplane.
Excellent thing you can fly so close to space so we can see it. It's always just out of reach.
Great shots. So overall, the Pathfinder is probably one of the best fictional spacecraft designs, especially for what they went for in the show. A realistic design that could have been made in the late 1980s. And I have to say, it is really, really good. I often forget that Pathfinder doesn't even exist because it's just so well made. If you were to build an SSTO spaceplane, this is one of the possible ways to do it. An air-launched SSTO with a nuclear Nerva engine on there is, well, it is not based on a real idea, real design. I could actually imagine that someone at some point conceptualized a similar vehicle. So overall, I'd give it a 10 out of 10. This is the ideal spaceflight scene. I don't know anything that is better than this. I love it. And our 7th and final scene is a bit more from the realms of science fiction. It is from the 2009 movie Avatar from James Cameron. One of my personal favorite sci-fi movies. Maybe that is why it's in here, who knows. But we have two really distinctive fictional spacecraft designs going on here, which are really interesting, and we're gonna analyze how well they acknowledge the laws of physics and the in-universe design constraints of being set in the year 2154 and the scenario that they're used in. So let's just check them out and see how realistic they are.
In cryo, you don't dream at all.
So they're using cryosleep to travel long distances, which is a real idea. It makes sense in universe. And they have 0G on board their spacecraft, which is often overlooked in science fiction. But I mean, you don't have gravity in space. It makes sense.
Are we there yet? Yeah, we're there, sunshine. We're there.
Been in cryo for 5 years, 9 months, and 22 days.
Long journey, makes sense to use cryo.
You will be weak. If you feel nausea, please use the sacks provided for your convenience. Staff, thank you in advance.
There we have the ISV Venture Star, one of the best ship designs in science fiction, but we're gonna get a better shot of it just in a few seconds. Planet of Pandora is probably one of... It's a really, really nicely designed world, alien world thing. It could exist in real life, we know it doesn't, but it's, after all, a really, really realistic exoplanet depiction. And it looks great. So, and there we have our ISV Venture Star. The first thing I really find outstanding on this vehicle is on the left side these large orange radiators. Radiators are needed to get heat out of the engine section in space, which is basically the only way you can do that. And it's often overlooked in physics, but this one has these radiators. They are really, really large. They're still glowing. I love them. Also, having the engine section actually pulls the cruise section, which is on the right side of the vehicle, behind it, and therefore allows for this long, fragile, tensile structure to be used here. If you push the vehicle, you cannot use tensile structures. If you pull it, you can, and that saves a lot of mass and therefore energy required to accelerate and decelerate such a craft to great velocities. So that is a really good design choice in terms of lowering the mass constraints of your vehicle. Also, having the cruise section this far away from the engine section allows for making use of the inverse square law, which tells you that the further you are away from the radiation source, you get less radiation, which means that the harmful rays produced by the engine section are so far away from the crew section that the survivability rate of the crew is way higher without having to use any additional shielding, which adds more mass and everything that you don't want to have. So overall, this is a really good fictional spacecraft design in terms of interstellar vehicles. One of the best out there. And as you can see, it has artificial gravity and has this centrifuge to produce it. And the Valkyrie shuttle right there.
2249. Launching in the burn.
So here we have our Valkyrie shuttle. It is an SSCO spaceplane again. It has the same traditional black and white color scheme. The re-entry profile looked a bit weird going so steeply down there, but we don't know which stage of re-entry that is. It could be possible, it could not be, who knows. The thing that annoys me about this craft is the high-rise wing, which is not something you want to have on an SSTO spaceplane design, because a low wing is far easier to shield against re-entry heating and is a lot less complicated to build in terms of heat shielding and everything. So the high-rise wing, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense. But we see this spaceplane has an airplane mode and a spaceplane mode, and can switch between it. Interior is a bit too aircraft-like for a spacecraft, but I give you that. I do love this quote though. And now we're just flying in an alien atmosphere, which is fine. And here you can see why it has the high-rise wings, that instead of just gimbaling the engine nozzle, the Valkyrie shuttle actually gimbals the entire engine assembly, which, again, it's possible, but why would you do that? It's a bit too complicated, actually. Like, you could have the design a bit easier if you just use a lower wing and you gimbal the nozzle instead of the entire engine. So it's possible, but unnecessarily complicated. Yeah, now it just does a VTOL landing. Okay, so overall, this scene, the first spacecraft we're gonna see, we see in this scene, the ISV Venture Star, it's perfectly well done. It's one of the best fictional spacecraft out there due to acknowledging the laws of physics and having really smart engineering behind it, and the entire design makes a whole lot of sense for what it's used for. The Valkyrie shuttle, however, it may be possible to build, but it has a few design choices which feel a little bit off and counterintuitive to me. So overall, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It has a great interstellar vehicle, a not so great shuttle, and it's a bit deeper into the realms of science fiction in terms of technology, but it's still fairly realistic. And that is it for our analysis of 7 different scenes from cinema and TV that depict spaceflight in different real and fictional universes. So overall, I hope you liked this video. It's pretty much an experimental format right now. I don't know if there ever will be a second part of it. If you want to have one, let me know in the comments if you would be interested, and maybe even give some suggestions for further movie scenes I could analyze. Again, I want to give a huge shout out and thank you to everybody who has subscribed in the past month or so and has expanded the channel so much, everyone. And also thank you for watching this video until the very end. we're gonna restart our normal upload schedule in a few weeks. I got another deep dive in the works right now, and until then, I guess I'm out. Cheers!